Hi, I'm Bert Enserink, your teacher in this course. In the previous step, we filled out the matrix, distinguishing the critical and the dedicated from the non-critical and non-dedicated actors, and now we have to think about what we learn from these distinctions. Well, looking at the implications of our newly acquired insights, we will have to look at three different aspects. The problem formulation. Is the problem indeed the right problem, or do we have to reconsider the way it is phrased or framed? The interaction with the other actors. Who do we have to involve in what kind of activities, and what are the issues that may need further research? What are the possible research questions and activities? What are the consequences for problem formulation? Well, we can look at this issue in at least two different ways. By taking into account important concerns and issues and the means of our critical actors, and secondly, by taking these along in reconsidering the systems diagram. So, we turn to our wind at sea case, and we see that the important allies of economic affairs also want wind at sea, but they don't agree on how. Moreover, we want that banks and investors get engaged and will start investing in the wind parks at sea. We also noticed that most opponents are not critical, but they can cause delays, and we should be careful not to offend the shipping industry and important harbours like Rotterdam. So, for the Ministry of Economic Affairs, it's important to look for locations that are near shore and not close to shipping lanes. And it's important to share costs, to find investors and to safeguard subsidies. When we look at the systems diagram, we see that the above insights imply that there will be a change in the policy measures. We will start looking for nearshore options, and there will be new financial means when we include the banks in our supporters network. The interaction with the other actors. Who do we have to involve in what kind of activities? Well, finding out who are your friends and your foes will help you design a strategy for problem solving. It generates information on what coalitions might win the game. It shows you who are the competitors and with whom you might cooperate. And you can anticipate or prevent potential conflicts. And of course, you can make a process design that allows for sound and effective policy design. Let's take a sidestep at this latest subject. Whom to involve? A nice way to determine whom to involve in what way is by returning to the power interest grid. We saw it before. But you can also use the matrix with the dedicated and critical actors that we showed you before. Typically, in a power interest grid, we distinguish four categories of actors. The players, who might have high power, the means and the high interest. The crowd, with little or no means and low interest. The subjects, who have a high interest only, and the context setters, who have important means but little interest. Typically, you try to actively involve the players, and you try to keep the context setters satisfied, because you may need them at a later moment. The crowd you ignore for now, and the subject you keep informed as they are the potential allies or opponents. That will something the future will learn. When we would fill out this power interest grid for our wind at sea case, we will see the Ministry of I&M and Water and Space and TenneT and the energy companies appear in the players list with a plus sign behind their names to indicate that they are the allies, while the harbour authorities and the shipping sector are in the same quadrant with a minus sign, indicating they are the opponents. In this way, we can fill this schedule. Banks and private equity show up as context setters. The subjects are the environmental NGOs, the NWEA, knowledge institutes, construction companies, windmill producers, economic affairs, the fisheries side, and the oil and gas industry. The crowds then are formed by the Ministry of I&M, the DG Environment and International, the Ministry of Finance, the provinces, dredging companies, and local authorities. They can be ignored for now. Finally, what might be the consequences for organizing our research activities? Well, you may have found new parties whose objectives and means might need to be explored. You found new factors in the system which are influencing the outcome, or you discovered new relations between factors that impact the outcome and which need further study. your new insights may lead to adaptation of the system and its delineation, which requires new modeling, while new issues that you discovered with other actors and new coalitions pressing for different solutions, they may spur the need for additional research too. Finally, I want to look at the limitations. I want to warn you that doing these kind of actor network studies and the sustainability of the outcomes of these analyses can be problematic. There are limitations of actor analysis. The first thing you should realize is that you're making a snapshot in time. Actor networks and the relations between actors are dynamic. Moreover, people and parties change position as they get new insights, and they do so by learning both about the content of the problem but also by learning about the perspectives and motives of other actors in the network. A danger of making these kind of tables is that these tables and graphs are abused for polarization, explicating the points of difference and conflicts, and they're not focused on how to bridge these differences. There's a severe risk of self-fulfilling prophecy too, especially with classification of opponents. Once you're considered an opponent, you will remain an opponent, and little constructive dialogue is possible. Finally, there are ethical considerations that may be lost with a strategic focus on critical actors. You don't look at the actors with limited resources. The fact that local inhabitants and environmental NGOs have few resources doesn't mean that their concerns are not justified. I'll now try to summarize what we learned in this second part of the lecture on how to do an actor network analysis. And we looked at how to analyze the interdependencies by focusing at the resources and the willingness to use these resources and the dedication to solve this issue or problem. In that way, we were able to distinguish the so-called critical actors. We introduced to you the matrix in which we distinguish the dedicated critical actors from the non-dedicated ones and the non-critical ones. We also discussed how we can use these insights in the way we deal with different kinds of actors, how we do or do not involve them in our process, and we discussed how this knowledge impacts your understanding of the problem situation. And finally, we discussed the dangers and limitations of making these kind of actor network inventories, the snapshot character and the danger of self-fulfilling prophecies.